All right, class one, here we go. We're going to talk about the 5 basic bonsai styles. We're going to talk about plant materials today. We're going to do some initial cleanup work on our trees. We're going to find the line in the front of the tree by studying the trunk, and we're going to find main branches. Okay, a lot of you know about the 5 basic bonsai styles. There's lots and lots of styles, but today we're going to talk about the 5 basic ones. The 5 basic are the formal upright or the chokan. Everybody say chokan.
Chokan.
And the informal upright style, also known as Miyogi. The Miyogi style, Mr. Miyogi style, is the informal upright. Then we have the slant style or shakan. We have the half cascade or han kengai, and the full cascade, the kengai. All right. Let's look at the formal upright or chokan. The chokan style is usually done with a conifer. Can be done with a deciduous tree as well, but you usually see it as a very strong coniferous plant, often with a powerful taper. This bald cypress is a great example of a formal upright, super strong, very masculine tree. The informal upright, or Miyogi style, is a curved trunk with branches on the outsides of the curves, and the apex usually ends up over the base, more or less over the base. It brings balance to it. The next one is the slant, or shakan. The slant style trunk flows to one side or the other, either right or left, and the apex is offset from the base. Our next style is the half cascade or han kengai. This has a trunk that leans mostly horizontal to one side or another. It usually doesn't go below the base of the pot. This is a good example of the han kengai style. And lastly, of our 5 styles is the full cascade or kengai. And the trunk falls well below the rim of the pot, usually, and can go down quite far down below the rim. Okay, now we will talk about plant material. What is appropriate plant material for bonsai beginners? Plant material is usually what we use is usually 1 gallons and sometimes 5-gallon trees. We're looking for trees that are really durable in your own personal area. And we want to start out with inexpensive items because it's very common for us to kill our first few trees. So start inexpensive and get quite a few. We're also going to talk about trees that are easy to shape, trees that are easily reduced in size. A lot of times folks like to start with pines and azaleas, and those are 2 difficult ones that we will probably try and stay away from right off the top. This looks kind of unruly, but this to me is a really good first choice. Tree that has lots of branching available, lots and lots of foliage, super green, super healthy, already established. This one especially is established in a rectangular pot, which is the shape of the roots that we're eventually going to shoot for. All right, so today's work, we're gonna look through our trees. We're gonna pull weeds. We're gonna pinch off small growths off the trunk, and we're gonna take off any dead leaves or any little crotch growths that are stealing vigor from the main branching. So the very first thing we do in bonsai is we look for the front of a tree. We find the front by looking for a really nice attractive line of the trunk with the initial movement going left or right, not backwards, not forwards. So we want to look for, very first thing is a movement right or left. A lot of folks look at roots first, and that's pretty important as well. It works, they kind of work together. We also want to keep scars towards the back or to the sides. We want to minimalize scarring in the front. The second thing we're looking for is a great, powerful spread of roots. The roots should flare out like the spokes of a wheel out from the base of the trunk, not windy and not flowing over the top of each other. Lots of root work can be fixed over time, but if we can find a tree that has great, powerful roots to begin with, we're much better off. The next thing we are looking for is an arrangement of branching that goes left or right first. Again, not forward, not backwards. So that's what we're looking for. All right, and also the last item in finding the front is a potential apex or the very tippity top moving towards the front. We don't want the tree to end up moving away from you as a viewer. So this is something that can be fixed in wiring as well, but again, if we can find a great potential bonsai when we're shopping and it already has an apex moving forward, it's a plus. Alright, so let's start at the bottom. First of all, we want roots radiating out, we talked about. But there's one root we don't want. We don't want a big, thick root coming directly at us. That was what we call an eye-poking root. This kind of root can be taken off as well, of course, but it just gives you an idea of something to look for. Something to look for also when we're finding the front. A consideration to make is that you use the widest part of the trunk towards the viewer. That gives you the most flare, the most taper. And if that's possible, when you rotate a tree, a lot of times you'll see one side is much more flared than the other. Like this particular one, if you turned it to one side or the other, you wouldn't see any of this big wide base. So that's also a consideration when looking for your front. So we found the front. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and do some branch selection. So what is some criteria for branching up a tree? So in general, bonsai have larger branches at the bottom and they work their way in decreasing size up the tree. So we're looking for a somewhat triangular shape. That's one consideration. Of course, that can be fixed with wiring and trimming as well. Also, we're going to look for low branches that go to the left and the right. We're going to try and stay away from branching towards the front or towards the back to start. As a third choice, a back branch could be a first branch, but usually it's either a right or a left. We also want to look for branches on the outside of curves, especially on miyogi trees. Sometimes branching may not actually be on the outsides of these curves, but can be fixed in wiring. This tree here had branches all over the place, but it kind of has a nice balanced effect by the way they brought a branch down at that first curve on the left. Also look for these branch patterns. You see the tree on the right is very, very two-dimensional. It's got branches going right, branches going left. We're looking down from the top as a bird's eye view. The branch pattern on the left tree is much, much better. It has a right, a left, and a back branch, balancing and giving depth. So we're looking for these branch patterns, a left, right, back, or right, left, back. Try to avoid having branches spaced evenly up and down the trunk. See the one on the left? Looks very unnatural. The one on the right is much better. The branching gets tighter as it goes. The branches should be laid out just like the roots were. So every branch gets its own sun. They're all radiating out from the trunk at different locations. So when you found the front of your tree, mark it with chopsticks. That'll help you remember. When developing your tree, you should leave a little bit of space between branches. This gives the impression of a tree rather than a shrub. A little bit of negative space. The old little bit of space for the birds to fly through, adage. Also, one way of indicating old age in a bonsai is that the branches angle downwards. Young trees or shrubs, you'll see a lot of times are vase-shaped. The branches extend out in a V pattern. As the trees age, they get old and they get weighted down by snow or by fruit or by lots and lots of foliage, and gravity just pulls them down, and that pulling down effect causes them to droop. So we can do this by wiring, by weighting, by guy wiring. All those things will bring branches down. and it gives an immediate illusion of a much older tree. So what are things we don't want in our branching pattern? First of all, we don't want eye-poking branches. Something that comes directly at you in the lower half of the tree. Something that comes straight at you is called an eye-poking branch. We don't want that. A little bit about deadwood. Bonsai can have areas of deadwood to give the impression of old age as well. A lot of times we'll use a dead top, which indicates a lightning strike, or a low shari and jin. Those are two words, Japanese words that indicate dead areas on the trunk or a branch. They also give a nice impression of age. Back to branches that we don't want. We don't want parallel branches. What is a parallel branch? Two branches that sit on the same part of the tree, same part of the trunk, right over the top of each other. We could fix a parallel branch by wiring usually, but sometimes you might just want to go ahead. Obviously, the lower branch is going to get shaded out by the top one. So that's a horticultural reason as well. The next one is called bar branching. We don't want bar branches that originate from the same level on the trunk. You can see an example on the left is a drawing of it, and then you actually see in that Procamesnana there a bar branch. Sometimes we get a bar branch that can be used that goes left, and then the bar branch that it's close to can go out to the back. Occasionally, if you have no back branches, that's your only choice. But that would be the only time we want to do that. Okay, how about some more faults? A branch that's right in the bend, on the inside of a bend, is called a pocket branch. We're going to try and avoid those. An area on a tree that has a thickness is called reverse taper. You can see there it's got a little bit of a waist, and we want to try to avoid that. It's best to run a sacrifice branch real low underneath that reverse taper to try and thicken the part below it. Once again, bar branches. You can see in this case we have a bar branch. This might be a good example of where you would leave the branch to the right, pick the one going out left, and sending it out to the back, and it still could be used, but have to be fixed in wiring. Another thing we want to avoid is the big scars up front. It's just ugly, and it takes many years. The pine here will cover over fairly rapidly, but still it's always going to be there. We also want to try to not create little pom-poms out at the end of branches. We want to really preserve the branchlets in close to the trunk, so we don't end up with pom-pom effect. This is also not bonsai. This is more in the lines of topiary. We want to avoid those kind of pom-poms as well. Be prepared for the unexpected and just get in there, be confident, and get to it. Also, we want to just give ourselves a reality check that these trees you're going to work on are your trees. Use your ideas. Make them your own. And also, many beginners have a hard time about cutting. I've seen dozens of beginners just sit in front of their tree with a shear in their hand and just afraid to make the cut. So bonsai is all about cutting, trimming, designing. So don't spaz out. In class 1, our checklist is this. We'll clean up weeds and little crotch growths off the trunk. We're going to find the front by evaluating the base. We're going to show the widest side. We're going to find the front by the trunk. It's going to move left or right. We're going to find the front by a branching going left or right or left. And finally, the branching, it will be on the outsides of the curves. Then you will mark the front with your chopstick, or you can mark your pot, either way. And then you're going to decide on your branching, and you're going to start cutting and trimming them. The pattern will be left, right, back, or right, left, back. You're going to try and leave a nice spread of branching going up the trunk, and you're going to avoid all the faulty branch problems we talked about. So that's the end of part 1. Go get your trees and get to it. Bye-bye.